Well, this morning, having done most of the smaller series, I've just got two works left to do. The street scene here, quite a nice one, and one across the river, and then the Argenton series for the exhibition is completed as far as I'm concerned. Plenty of work there. Plus we've got plenty of the cafe scenes and the secret series we can add to them as well. So that'll be great, and that's for the pressure off me until spring when I take them over there, and hopefully we thoroughly enjoy this show. But the last couple I did, well, but all of these have been done with brushes, and although I showed you recently on one of my courses, the acrylics course I'm running down here in Brigg, the use of the sponge roller, this one would be an ideal opportunity for me to show you how you can treat a large area like this quite texturally with the sponge rollers, these colours here. If I want to do this with brushes, I've got quite a big area to try and work textures into, and I think the rollers would suit this very well. So I'm going to do that with the brushes, with the flats, and this lot with the sponge roller, and give you an idea of how we can use those sponge rollers to great effect. They're great fun. Well, the next thing is how to actually use the sponge rollers. And what I tend to do is take a nice big brush. In this case I'm going to be using a nice big filbert to mix the paint with into my palette here. I could use a paint tray if I wanted, this one, so I've got a choice of whichever I prefer to use. And then we use the sponge roller and we roll the sponge roller over the brush. So let's mix a bit of paint just to show you how that's going to work. For instance, for the moment I'm going to do a bit of the sky, and I'm just going to put in some white, because I'm making a fairly light colour at first. Plenty of it, because the sponge roller does tend to use it up. We don't need to keep washing the sponge roller out if we start from our lighter colours and work downwards. So that's very handy. I'm going to take a little bit of lemon yellow, add that to it to give myself a very pale yellow, then a wee touch of my turquoise to give that sort of colour. And now this is the trick. Don't waste your paint. Roll your sponge roller actually through the brush and the paint, so we get this sort of an effect. And there you see the sponge roller is totally covered. Now let's go up to my canvas and I'll show you how we're going to work it. We'll start by pressing quite hard and working the sponge roller right down into these corners. You can see you can use the edge of the roller there to paint a triangle or to paint down a thinner straight line. Right up to here. That goes all the way up to the rooftop there. We want to paint fairly heavily, and possibly you can already see we're getting some sort of texturing going on here already. Plenty of paint on there, so they want to start with plenty of paint. Roll that right through here, right up down to these buildings here, into there. And as with the brush, if you see it anywhere else and you've got it on your sponge roller, then use it. For instance, I know I've got, and I can use it semi-transparently, so you can see my drawing underneath there, but I've got that colour around those window frames there, so I want to use it there. Maybe use it down here in a minute as well. Right, back down to my paint again. I need to go a stage darker, so I'm going to take some stronger turquoise now, and again run my brush underneath the roller, run the roller through the brush like this, back up to my painting, and I'm going to start a little bit higher up here, right up here. I need to just raise that so I can get this part of the painting done. Watch out for blobs and things. And as I come down now to this lower part, I'm going to become a little more gentle as I come across the existing lighter paint. And we can blend it in. So the corner of the roller there, coming down fairly heavily until I reach that lighter paint. And just gently coming across and blending into that softly. And you can see how we can blend the two together and even slightly glaze over the top of it, so we get that sort of an effect. It's rather nice. And we can bring other colours over that in a moment as well. And I'm going to do just that now. I'm going to bring a very light magenta over it by just glazing it over. But first, is there anywhere else I need it? Yes, on these window frames here. So I'm going to bring that blue down these window frames. You can see it's quite crude at the moment because we're going to come around them later. Just there and there. There's a little bit there on that light. I can bring these things out with, you can use the sponge by dragging it as well. Nothing will stop you from drawing with the sponge in that way. It's coming down into these areas here around the door frame here. So I'm just going to bring it down there, right through there. In fact, I can still see my drawing underneath, so it's glazing a little bit like a thin coat of paint or watercolour almost. That blue's coming right up and through here, and I want that blue coming into these areas here because it's going to be reflecting through in places. So wherever I can see this blue showing underneath my pavement here, put a bit in now. And again, I want it to be very light, so I'm going to take my white and add it next to this one. I shan't have to clean my roller off for this. So bringing that through there, and it now, because the paint is quite heavy and quite thick, it now starts to take on that colour. There's a little bit more of that magenta into it. There we go. That's got that pink just working onto the surface of the roller. Now I'll come back up to here, and again very gently, I'm going to work my way down, just gently across here, letting this come up in almost perspective lines here, just working this magenta across here very, very gently, right across and down. And now I want to come a little bit warmer up here, so I'm going backwards and forwards. Take a little bit of cerulean now, which is a bit stronger. You see how much stronger that is there, and drag my roller through that. So I've got a slightly warmer, very fractionally warmer, but it is warmer, blue. Here again, and let's just carefully come across here now with a slightly stronger blue. Push a little bit harder at first, and just carefully come up through here, giving a slightly broken colour, just gently. You know, lovely effect of light we get there now. It's a good way to cover an area with not too much paint to get lovely effects. Again, the same over here. I'll use up the whole of this paint on my roller. You'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. So everybody's mad, you could just have done the whole canvas like that. But really, I'm feeling my way with the painting and the drawing, and I'm getting texture happening already. Directional strokes even with the sponge roller. So I'm going to add some quite strong magenta to this mix now, and a little bit of cadmium yellow magenta, pale magenta, sort of yellowy magenta mix. One colour. As I run this through now, I'm deliberately going to run it through those different areas of the paint. You see how varied that is. So that when I come back over here, it's going to start to give that variegated effect on the actual wall. See how we're getting this lovely textural effect. We can go back into this with a brush, we can with acrylics, we can go light to dark, dark to light, anytime we want. So it's pinker. Lovely light pink effects just coming through there as the light blazes on down, right down to here. That lovely ghosting you can get. Now to get that with a brush would be very difficult. Now I can start to go a bit darker. I want to add a slightly more greener tint to it. So I'm going to take a bit of green deliberately, a little bit of purple. Run my roller through them both, gradually finding these colours. Now I can gently go over the painting again. Use the edge of the roller, look, to get the effects here as it comes across the road. Just to indicate where that window is, just find these places. Comes under here, very dark up through here, but I'm going to put even more dark under here in a minute. I'm going to go quite dark now. I'm going to make a purple and a blue and a bit of brown. I'm going to go very dark, in fact, some of my darks now. need to get that roller really working into that dark. And when I go this dark, the chances are that I'm going to have to wash the roller afterwards. Lots of paint for this job now because I've got to go very dark. There we go, let's try that. And you see we get these lovely darks now. Rolling right the way down the edge of the roller again to get my feeling of my texturing and being a bit more delicate with it. There's a drain pipe coming down here, I can just get that in with the edge of the roller. See how finely you can draw, look. And that drain pipe down there, come into the other darker bits and pieces of the line here. See how much we can do with the sponge roller because it's a very versatile tool. It's more versatile than people believe or even understand if they've never seen it being used before like this. This is a fairly cool dark at the moment. I've used a lot of blue with this. Use the corner of the side of the roller here, just come up that edge like that. Like I say, it's surprising how much you can do with the roller. You can work into this with the brush later. Just get these lovely textures and tones going and feel this old, damp, dark, shadowed, shaded roof street going down, vines are coming out here. Even into the sky, we can do some of that with the roller, although I want to do most of it with the brush later to get these sharper edges here. Some purple to make it even warmer. A bit more green in there as well. Really get a lovely, rich, warm dark. A lovely, warm dark, Prussian and alizarin crimson, Valenciana. And we'll see if we can get this even darker. I may even put a bit of black onto this later as well to really make a design out of it. And there we go. Now look how dark that's becoming. That's quite nice, isn't it? And we're getting quite a nice texture. Slightly sharper edge there though, so I'm going to just come down a bit of the roller. I want quite a bit more warmth in there, so I'm going to take some more brown and red into that. So burnt sienna and cadmium, deliberately, very warm. I love these sponge rollers, haven't used them for a bit, but I'll get back into them again. Especially with something like this where you've got so much texture going on and you really need to find that texture. There's lovely textures. Right, I'm going to go to some black. I don't normally use black, but I'm going to use some today. Right down into here, to the drawing here, darker just up there, down here, places. And the way that those darks then are transferred into the stonework here as well. Very dark just down here. Right, I think I've almost done enough with the sponge roller there. It's going to be done with the brush. I might just come back in with a bit of the blues here, I think. I'll just go and wash my roller now. Okay, well I've got more greens coming into here and I've got some lovely blues happening. So I'm going to go straight back to my blues for the moment. Take some lovely cerulean again. Just add a little bit of white to it to make it slightly heavier bodied. A little bit of white. Maybe a little bit of turquoise into that too. A wee bit of white. And that should be alright. I'll roll the roller through that. If it's not, we'll come back. The trouble now is that my roller is damp and you don't want it too thin. So let's make sure the paint is still thick enough. Now, back up to the painting. A lovely light we're getting there already. And just gently come back into these windows here, the edge of the roller, and we'll try and find these windows. Bring these blues. We've had the blue underneath, now I'm bringing it on the surface. And I can do the same, even with the little bits of stonework here. Take that same blue and just start to put it back in with the roller there. These lovely cools of the stonework here. I'm pushing it a little bit harder. You can see the slight variation in marks I'm getting as well because of having a little bit of white paint there in the mix. Again, how would you get these effects with a brush? You couldn't. So this technique is developed by me for this purpose. You won't find this, I don't think, in any books or videos elsewhere. So at the moment it's free, but we're going to gradually remove stuff from my channel here. And because we're making a channel where you can download films, and of course we've got to make that pay, so make the most of what you've got while it's here. I'll still keep some short films on, and I'll still keep the vlogs going. Now down to my brushes, I'm going to take a 3/8 flat and use. First thing I want to do is pick up on these beautiful light turquoise pink areas here. So I'm going to take a little bit of very light magenta first of all and just come across here. Now that very light blue, let's see if we can get some of that in. So I want some turquoise and white. I prefer just to do one stroke, I don't like the paint blending in too much like that. And then let's go back to some of these darks again. Prussian blue on the burnt sienna. Right. So we'll let that dry off. And while that's drying, so that I can work some of these details into here, which I can't quite do yet. I'll just do a little bit. Take a small round brush, touch of black, touch of burnt sienna, touch of ultramarine, touch of you can see why I did that little bit of light earlier now, because I can bring it out around it now with these darks. And finish my lamp off. This one's a number 4. I was doing a number 0 before, but we start thick and we go thin at the ends. All branches start thick and go thin at the ends unless they've got a cancer, in which case they become like a burr, and a burr is where you get those wonderful veneers on furniture from. So I'm going to just bring out all these lovely little curls and swirls with the tip of the brush. And they reach back up towards the light as well, like this. Now there's no quick way around this. I could use a rake brush if I wanted repeated patterns, but I don't want to make these into repeated patterns. I do want every single one to be slightly different. Come up there slightly now. Get the feeling of this lattice work of twigs. Sometimes there's just no way around it. You've got to paint details. And this, at the end of some of these twigs there are little bits of leaf, so I'm going to have to go back into these and paint these little bits of leaf. And one of the tricks of doing this is when you pick your paint up on the brush, just roll the brush and then flatten it out both ways so you get a slightly thinner blade to it rather than just a round point. This tangled web. And little leaf shapes of the ivy that is coming down into here as well. Play with those. Textures. I don't want lots of detail really, but I just want to get textures one against another. Rather fun. And amongst that, I want some more blue. So I'm going to take some ultramarine and a little bit of cobalt. I just want to bring out some more blues into this because there's a lovely deep blue glowing through these branches. So wherever we see that blue now happening, that deeper, rich, warm blue, I've got to bring it in. And that gives us that lovely street, that cool street. Back to my turquoise again, because it brings the cool blues out. If we don't put the warm on, we can't keep making the cools cooler, we have to be able to put one next to another to make them stand out. And that's not going to work thoroughly now until I get the background in. So that's the next part to start doing now. Back to my flat brushes. And pick up my little flat here. Now I want to start working on these background colours. And we're going back to, as we did before now, we're going back to just painting with, like I did with the other artworks, these various light greys and warm and cool greys back here. So wherever the colour is, if you've got it somewhere else, use it now and then we can change colours. Usually when you brush it in like this, it gets rid of anything like that. So I'm going to put purer colour on in a moment. I just want to, first of all, try and get rid of this paint that's resisting. Break through this surface grease or whatever's got onto here. Just want to get this canvas covered because it says it's resisting so much, it's making it very difficult for me to actually, well, hopefully I can bring white over these colours and know where I am and lose all of this remaining white that's gleaming through here. I want to lose all of these little bits of white and then I can put the colours up over the top. There we go. Now, this is where it should become fun. We'll start to add in our little bits of dark and a bit of Prussian blue now. Back into here. Find these cooler shadows. All these little geometric, beautiful geometric shapes that are happening down here now, so we can pick out. So I don't want too much detail, but equally I've got to put this detail in to find these lovely shapes. Down against the light of the edge of the water here. There's no option but to paint these things in. There's no particularly quick route on something like this. Now that's all my darks, and I'm going to really have fun in just a minute. At last I can have some fun in putting in some of these lights, because I've got to put all these lovely light creams back in again to here, and that's really going to make a difference. Watch these angles here. When I start putting these highlights back in, the thing will come to life. So we'll let that dry off, so I'll put the highlights in cleanly on top. Right, it's time to start working out some of the lighter colours here now. So before I go to the actual creams, I'm going to just try and lighten up these grooves a little bit. Take this light orange and see if we can just brighten some of this a little more around here. And the same with these pinks and reds. I think here we need that a bit brighter as well. Light magenta into that colour, just see if we can lighten these up a fraction more to really get the effects of light here. Well, that's a little better. Could be a bit brighter yet, I think, so look at some magenta there. Let's see if we can brighten things up a little more here. Lights here first. Reflected lights. This has got a slight bit of blue in it, it's just a little bit more reflected. Just putting in the right colours in the right places, hopefully, and we'll get the thing just coming together on its own. Tiniest touch of orange into that to give that a warm, cool. And let's see if we can really start to make this sing now. Before I put on the cool cools, in other words, I'm going to be using the lemon yellow and white. We've really gone for the sunlight yet, these are still our mid-lights. Okay, it's time to really go for the sunlight now, and we'll make some very cool cream. Some lemon yellow and white. We'll just really bring that out. The warmth of this. You'll see the difference now when the sunlight really does, hopefully, start to appear. Little touches of lemon yellow into white then, to really just finally bring out these bits of sunlight across these lovely old medieval buildings. Coming down from here, we've got a couple of bits of light shining through the sunlight here. Coming down and through the split, which we can put on now because the paint's dry. Playing these lights against darks and warms against cools beautifully here, I think. Now a little more white, just give it a little sparkle at the end, here and there. And I want to come back to those blues a bit, so I'm going to take some cerulean, really light cerulean, and just pick up on some of these blues a little bit here. And if that green's happening in there, the chances are that it's going to be coming into the buildings as well a bit more green up here. Highlights up into the sky there. And once we're on turquoises and lights, let's have a look at this sky a little bit more. A bit more white into that. I just want to pick out some of the lights amongst the branches a little more here. And we're almost there, look. And I'd say that little old painting of twisty buildings is about where I want it to go. There we are. I don't think we need to do any more to that. So, I hope that's been useful to you in learning about the sponge roller. I'm just going to touch a little of the dark, very light twigs, because they stand out just a little bit too much. I just want to take them back a little bit with the lighter colour